The following may contain language that is not suitable for all audiences. It's time. For the low-fat podcast.
You outsmarted yourself.
No, I just didn't know what I was going to say, and so I stuttered at the very end. It's been a while since we been doing stuff. It's really because we've got a lot of junk going on.
Yep, bullshit. Mostly bullshit.
Isn't it all bullshit, though?
Yeah.
So, anyway, I thought maybe today we could kind of like start putting forth opinions to the stuff that we never put forth opinions to.
Oh, no.
Well, you don't want to do it?
Yeah, we can do it.
Well, just some of the stuff that we talked about before.
Wow.
You know, like, do the ends justify the means? Just your own personal opinion, yes or no?
Yes.
I say no.
Why?
Well, if you're going to live in a society, or if you're going to live in any vein, but more in a society, you really want to encourage people to act in a certain way.
Okay.
So if the ends justify the means, that means whatever you do is okay as long as the result that you want happens.
Yeah.
Now,
I was going to say no, but then I was like, the reality is I'm a yes. Like, if I was in that situation, I think I would justify it.
well, everybody would. I'm just saying. I remember. I don't know if I was talking to you or if I was just listening to it by myself, but I do remember when I used to listen to AM radio more often. Dennis Prager actually answered this question, and he said yes.
He said yes?
Yeah, he was talking like Hitler. Anything you can to get rid of that guy, justified.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right.
So what about, so kill all the Germans? The Germans?
Well, it wasn't about that. He was just saying there are some things, but he's also very big on the micro-macro dichotomy.
Right.
So he was thinking about these grand things.
Yeah.
Stopping worldwide evil. Yes, whatever you can do to stop worldwide evil is justified.
Yeah, but like, what does that entail?
But you can justify yourself into everything, anything.
I'm surprised he answered yes.
I'm not. I mean, there's a lot of people, especially nowadays, who really have they have an academic's view towards human life, towards life in general.
Which is that what, you can apply models to things?
They have an academic view to human life, right? So
isn't that kind of like a model? Academics are all about, we've got this theory and we're going to apply it to people.
Right, but those theories, the application is where everything breaks down. So they're just like doing stuff academically, antiseptically. The only thing that I can kind of make the comparison to is like Stalin and Lenin. Lenin didn't have any problem with getting people killed. He just didn't want to know about it or do it. Or hear about it.
Really? Supposedly.
Whereas,
he must have known, though.
Right, but as long as you don't tell him about it, then he didn't see it, then it didn't happen, I guess. I don't know.
That's insane.
Well, yes and no, but anyway. And I could be kind of conflating the two. But there are a lot of people, that just to blow off steam talk about having people killed. Just to blow off steam. They don't mean anything about it. Now, is it disturbing to be the person hearing about this ranting? You betcha.
Yep.
But those same people that have no problem saying stuff, they have big problems hearing stuff. Which I'm just like,
But you say it.
Doesn't matter.
So these people that just say it, like, kind of say that stuff all the time.
Well, they say it generally about people that they dislike.
So do you think that would be for killing that person then? Or people?
probably up until the point where you're like, here's the gun. Or here's the knife, go to it.
That wouldn't do it.
I hope not. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Psychologically.
One would think.
But moving on. Actually, that's the only one that the only question that I had thought about. Because we've actually gone through a couple of iterations of asking, do the ends justify the means?
Yeah, we talked about the book by what's his face.
Well, not even that. Just in our time talking about the subjects, we've had various. I've posed the question to various people, and
so most people say no.
Most people don't say anything.
Why?
They try to.
They say, "Oh, this is a stupid question."
Well, they do what you do to me often, which is you're trying to trap me into something. I'm sitting there going, trap you into what?
You're trying to figure something out.
I'm not even trying anything. I'm just trying to find out what you'd say. I'm just making conversation, really.
Yeah.
It might be a difficult conversation from someone's standpoint, but a lot of times when...
This doesn't seem like that difficult a question, though.
Well, it's not. Do the ends justify the means?
I don't. Yes or no.
I don't think they do. But if someone tries to say, "Aha!" but you do all this stuff, even though if it was considered immoral or illegal or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I probably would.
So then the answer is yes.
No, it's still not justified.
Oh, but if you're doing it, it's still not justified.
No.
Well, what if you take Prager's example?
What about it?
Killing a tyrant. Or killing whatever.
Well, not necessarily killing.
Or stopping.
I mean,
doing everything you can to stop somebody that's, say, going to kill millions of people.
I think that's a pretty noble endeavor.
Right. But it's not going to end up being noble. Making
sausage never is. This is what I mean by academic. I guess I really mean antiseptic.
Well, it's similar, right?
It's like the difference between real life and it's like the difference between experiencing something in person rather than watching something going on in film.
Yeah.
Or on a screen.
That just reminds me there's a lot of stuff on social media right now where they'll just show a clip of somebody losing their shit and invariably like it's a white woman and they're like, oh, what a Karen, she's this, she's that, just all these people weighing in, and I'm like, well, it's like a 5-second or 10-second clip. I'm like, what happened before? What happened before? What happened after? Is there something that you're missing? About? Like, there's no context. I think a lot of people are kind of fine with that. Actually, people probably like that even better. Well, they don't want the context. Well, context is complicated. Because, like, what happened before this person was losing their shit? Was this person just, like, a crazy person? Or was there something that led to this altercation? Like some kind of shitty behavior. Right. Well. But I guess that kind of shit gets eyeballs and gets views and shares, so... Well, there's a lot of stuff that's going on that people are, should be worried about. Apparently, group IQ in the United States has been going down since 2006. Everybody's IQ? Well, measured. And why is that? Lots of theories. I have no idea. That's probably schooling. Well, the usual. People aren't reading shit. The usual stuff. Yeah. But that's the plan, right? If it is, it's a pretty stupid plan. Well, the people who are pulling the strings are thinking they will be able to stay on top and reap the benefits. A bunch of dumb people. Maybe, but that means that they're dumber too. But maybe they think they're not dumber than... Not maybe, they do. They think they're more intelligent than these masses who are getting dumber. But everybody thinks they're more intelligent than everybody else. And I mean that with no sarcasm, irony, or superiority, sense of superiority. Every single person thinks that they are probably the bee's knees. The best example of humanity that there is. Which I think is a very dangerous thing to think. In fact, I think that I'll take it even a step further. I think that most people think that they transcend humanity. You mean transcend being human?
They are better. They are better humans
than everybody else.
Pretty much. Now, of course, the obvious response to that is no, I don't, you idiot. But if you think about it, you kind of do. I don't think that there's anyone around that's smarter than me. Okay, let's say for the point of discussion that is true. There's no one on earth that is smarter than me. So what? I'm not Mustafa Mond.
Who's Mustafa Mond?
I forget which book it is. It's either I think it's 1984.
Really?
Or 1984 is Big Brother.
Big Brother, yeah.
Maybe it's Brave New World.
Big Brother is the government.
Well, I forget if it's... I haven't read either of those books in over 30 years, so... It's either Brave New World or...
What happens in Brave New World? Do you remember?
That's Huxley, right?
Yes.
So Brave New World is essentially this author's idea, which I believe is very prescient. Basically, it's another dystopian, I guess. It's a world where we have basically, well, it's our world in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
In that the only
you mean America?
No, the world today. The closest comparison is in Brave New World. Basically, the state raises everybody. They fully adopted Henry Ford's ideas of manufacturing and applied it to everything.
Okay.
And
producing babies, all that shit.
Mass production, the factory,
right.
the assembly line system.
Right.
And when I think about it, that's kind of that's happened in law. That's happened in medicine. Where you have doctors that don't... Well, I won't even talk about... I'll talk about law because that's something that I know more about.
Well, you know some stuff about medicine too.
Yeah, and farming.
Right.
Food production has essentially been factoryized.
That's true.
But in the law, instead of having people that... Specialization is not a bad thing necessarily. But I think that especially that in the law, especially in some aspects... It has become so specialized that you get to the point that there are attorneys that do one thing.
A ton of attorneys.
So you could conceivably have a contract with, let's say, 27, 30 essential terms, or 27 or 30 terms, and you just have 27 attorneys each doing their one term.
I haven't worked on contracts that have 27 attorneys, but I've certainly worked on contracts in recent times where there's like fucking 3 or 4 attorneys on either side
that only do one thing.
Yeah, like privacy, like commercial, like compliance.
Exactly.
Yeah, like employment.
And no, not just even that is a little bit more broader than what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think there are. It's not even one area.
Oh, really?
I'm talking like one thing.
You're talking about like a special...
I'm serious. You know...
like trade compliance.
Or whatever.
Right.
And...
Damn.
That's not...
No wonder there's so many attorneys.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because the reason why there are so many attorneys as opposed to doctors, especially in the United States... is because of the way money gets doled out for certain positions. In the medical field, there is a thing called residency, which is generally the time after medical school you spend working for a hospital.
Cutting your teeth.
You're training.
Right.
You know, you're training for whatever specialty you're going into or whatnot. And those residency spots are paid for by the U.S. government.
See, I didn't know this. I didn't know. Like, you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, what?
So there are a finite number of residency spots. And so what happens is that, when I was coming up, as I was telling you before, I never wanted to be a doctor for whatever reason. I think
I'm
I was
surprised.
Well, why? Because I'm Asian?
Yeah. No, I'm just... I'm surprised you didn't want to be a surgeon.
Just never had any interest.
You got a surgeon vibe, because I've known a few surgeons. So
so far there are basically two professions that I've missed out on. Remember, there was that one fella who was swearing up and down that I have an engineer's personality.
Yeah.
Or that I'm an engineer. I was like, I'm not an engineer. I was like, oh, but you so are. You just don't know it.
Yeah, you have a doctor's personality too.
So
Dude, you could have been like a good doctor, man.
I don't know. Anyway, so from what I understand, the medical schools pick the number of medical school spots are really kind of pegged towards the number of residency spots there are.
I wonder if it's the same in New Zealand.
Couldn't tell you.
I might have to ask my father.
So whereas in the United States, of course, law school also, you just need a building. You need a big room and a bunch of books. And there's no cutoff for how many lawyers they can be. There's not like, okay, each state bar says we're going to license this many people a year.
It's just whoever can pass.
Right, but in medical school it's a little different. It's a little different in my opinion because there's these residency spots.
So they whittle people out because they're like, this is how many we have to have.
I think they whittle people out at the beginning.
Okay.
In med school.
Right.
With the admittance.
Do you know what how many make it? Is it half? It's probably half.
What do you mean?
From who starts in med school versus who becomes a resident ultimately.
Well, I think it's probably close to...
I wonder what the attrition rate is.
I don't think the attrition rate is that low.
Okay.
I don't know. So I will come out, I don't know how low it is, but I don't think it's that low because they're essentially picking. So so let's say that there's 50,000, well, it's probably not even 50,000. Let's say there's like 10 or 20,000 spots a year or something like that.
Yeah.
They'll probably pick about 15 to 30,000 people.
To go to law school.
To go to medical school.
Medical school, yeah.
For law school, since there's no... The only limitation is the number of schools there are that used to be accredited by the American Bar Association, and even now that's getting kind of changed because of...
Dude, I've come across people who are like not in law but are in peripheral sort of stuff that have said, oh, I'm a law school graduate, and then I've like seen their work product and I'm just like, good lord.
You mean law school in the United States?
Yeah. Yeah, people that graduated law school and I'm just like, they don't even know how to like negotiate, draft, how a red line works. I'm just like, how can you not know this? But I guess if you've never worked in a law office, then,
of course. I mean, that whole how can you not know this? That's like sitting there saying, well, you went to school, you should know. I was like, well, no.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, if you never practice, right?
It takes 7 to 10 years to learn how to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
After law school. So, your first couple of jobs after law school, for some people that are lucky, it's their first job. Especially if you go to one of those mega firms and you're just working hard to try and make partner. That's a 7 to 10 year track. And a lot of people quit and do other things in law, but they don't stay in the big firms.
Especially now. It just seems like, because now you've got all these companies that are essentially, acting as your employer and just, and then just farming you out to the companies, the big companies, which is, it's like, it seems like the model has changed in the last, I don't know, decade.
Well, I think that's just, that's a different subject.
Yeah.
But that's not really, that's a different subject,
yeah.
Actually. I mean,
yeah. But anyway, coming back to Brave New World, so it's dystopian future. Everything's based on this idea of like mass manufacturing.
About Henry Ford's manufacturing process, yeah.
And so is it? So what happens though? Is there like some characters? I'm assuming there's some characters.
Yes, there's some characters. I also mix up that and Harrison Bergeron.
Okay.
Which is a Kurt Vonnegut story.
It's a very short story.
It's a super short story.
Right.
And
but similar theme.
Well, yes, Kurt Vonnegut's theme is really about collectivism and communism type deal.
I don't know too much about Vonnegut except for having read his short stories.
I like his stuff. And he was also in one of my guilty pleasure movies from the 80s.
What's that?
Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Wait, Kurt Vonnegut is in Back to School?
Yeah.
No.
So Back to School is a movie about Rodney Dangerfield who made a lot of money. Son's going to college. He never went to college, Rodney Dangerfield. So he decides to go back to school and kind of help out his son because his son's
is he like a manufacturing mogul or something?
He's a clothing manufacturer. He makes clothes for fat people. and during when Rodney Dangerfield goes back to school, he's basically like paying people to do stuff for him.
To do all those classes and shit?
Essentially. And in one of the scenes, his son's like, "You need to write your paper on Kurt Vonnegut." He's like, "I got it covered." And so that there's a knock at the door. And Kurt Vonnegut standing there is like, "Yeah, I'm here to see Thornton Malick. Could you say Kurt Vonnegut's here?"
No way.
And of course the joke goes on where people sit there and interpret a writer's work and it's totally not what they thought.
Uh-huh.
And so when he hands in the paper about Kurt Vonnegut that Kurt Vonnegut wrote about some story that he had written, the professor's like, "Oh, whoever you got, I know you didn't do the work, and whoever you got to do it clearly doesn't know a thing about Kurt Vonnegut." And so the next scene is him yelling at Kurt Vonnegut saying, I'm not paying the check. And he's like, "What? Fuck me. Hey, Kurt, do you know how to read lips? Fuck you." But he's on the phone.
I miss Rodney Dangerfield.
He was great. He didn't start doing the comedy until he was much older.
Did you ever see that bit on what is it? What
Johnny Carson?
Yeah. Do you ever see the Johnny Carson bit?
Where he was doing all his one-liners?
Dude, he has he does 100 one-liners, man.
Oh, he was
bang,
great.
Bang, 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 in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So what's the conclusion of Brave New World?
I don't remember.
Now I'm going to have to go read the damn book.
It's short. It's super short.
Well, I'm pretty sure they have it at the library.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
Well, that's what I'll be doing.
Another thing that I've noticed about journalism, which is kind of sad. The thing about propaganda. So a lot of people are not aware that they're being propagandized to.
How can you not be aware? No, I'm just kidding.
In that they believe that their opinion, or no, they have the assumption that whoever they agree with is being fair and unbalanced. Because I remember I just heard something on NPR this morning about the debt ceiling, and NPR being a pretty left-wing news service, was interviewing a pretty left-wing congressman. I think it was a member of Congress. But there was very little pushback. There was a little bit, which I was surprised about.
From the journalists.
Yeah, when the member of Congress was saying something, it's like, well, what about all the stuff that the other side is saying about that? And then if the member of Congress that was being interviewed was on the other side, a lot of the times, and I see the BBC journalists do this too.
Yeah,
they keep on they won't let them go off and not answer the question.
Right. Maybe the BBC. Well, I don't know. Maybe BBC journalists still like that.
They're like that to people they don't like.
Yeah.
And I think that as a journalist, you should be like that to everyone.
Right.
However, if you're like that to everyone, no one's going to answer your call.
You become to quote the expression from our last podcast, or was it 2 podcasts ago? A pariah.
Pretty much. They're not going to work with you.
They don't let you don't even get access.
Right. And so access is more important. So.
Is it though? I mean, it shouldn't be, right?
Well, our mode of life is dependent on money. Money being the literal and figurative currency for you to be able to continue living.
Yeah.
So you cut that flow, you essentially cut the flow of your life potential.
Well, maybe that's what needs to change, though.
Again, if it does, then you're talking about a life where everyone has to toil.
Okay.
And
fine.
You say that now, but the system that we've got set up would not exist if everyone had to toil. Without division of labor and all that junk?
Maybe people should have to toil, though.
Okay, why aren't you toiling?
Who says I'm not toiling?
No, I guess you don't. We're talking differently about toiling.
Are you talking about, like, hard labor?
I'm talking about going out looking for your food.
Oh.
And your and constructing your own shelter.
No.
And, preparing for winter.
I thought you were just talking about working hard.
No.
Like doing blue collar shit.
Again, that's based on money. It's a division of labor based on currency.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is even pre-farming days, maybe.
Well, there would have to be less people, wouldn't there?
Well, there will automatically be less people if something like that happened.
Right.
There would be no doctors. There would be no lawyers.
There would be no mass production of food.
There would be no armies. Well, no, there would be.
There'd be armies.
Yeah, because there are people like, you know what? Fuck toiling.
There'd be like feudal armies.
I'm stronger than most people. I can just go take it.
Right. So would everybody be running around with like knives and swords? There'd be no guns left.
Well, if there's no one around to produce ammunition,
yeah,
then yeah.
So it would be like a Hollywood movie.
I think it'd be much, much worse.
Yeah. But it is kind of messed up how everything now is about money.
Well, that's been that way for, I believe, probably at least the last 4,000 or 5,000 years.
No. So that's when shit started going downhill.
Actually, I don't know when stuff started going downhill, but I'm interested to know why you want to know when that point is or what it was.
Like when things started going downhill?
Yeah.
Because I want to know when we started getting corrupted by stuff.
Right. Okay. So at that, but
was it money?
But what would you? But with that information, why is that information important to you?
Well, it's more a question of what is it that is corrupting us? Is it just like, is it external or internal? Right? Like, is it something that, is it the money that is corrupting people, or is it just like people are corruptible and corrupted anyway, or did something start this whole rot?
Okay, and once you find out that information, you would do what?
I don't know what I would do, but I think it's a starting point, right? To know what it is that is like corrupting us.
Right, but if you have that information, so what? Is my question.
Well, maybe then you can do something.
Why?
So that there will be less corruption.
But wouldn't that really depend on who you are? Let's say I'm a billionaire, which I'm clearly not.
If you're a billionaire, then I don't know why you're hanging around here.
Right, which I'm clearly not. But if I were a billionaire, I couldn't care less how much corruption there is. I'm a billionaire, so what? Let's say I'm 100,000-aire, which I'm clearly not. Same answer.
Sure. That's your whole point about so what?
Yeah, well, let's take it down another peg. Let's say I'm someone who doesn't have a particularly easy life. I don't think anybody has an easy life, but let's say I'm just an average guy who, glory be to God, I got a house, got a wife, got some kids, got my bills, got my mode of eating.
Yeah.
Got my job or whatever.
For whom the bell tolls.
Well, it's done.
We're done?
Just kidding. But let's...
so much fucking traffic out here. Gosh darn it.
But, so let's say I'm a just somebody who's you know, doing my thing, living life, taking care of my family.
Uh-huh.
With my spouse who's also taking care of us and everything. I mean, why should I care about corruption? Is that corruption keeping me from getting more?
It probably is.
Well, maybe. You know what?
Yes.
You know what?
It is.
No, you know what? I agree with you. It probably is, but
no, it definitely is.
But okay, what if the alternative of that corruption is just death?
Well,
it's an extreme example, I grant you.
Yeah.
But you know, the whole world, all 7 whatever billion of us are working towards this system because of the incentives that we have, right?
Yeah.
If that system goes, what replaces it could be better, but in the interim between what we got now and what we replace it with,
it's going to be a shitstorm,
to say the very least.
Yeah. Hell on earth.
So how many people are going to want to buy into that? I say 0.
But that's the funny thing about the activists.
Well, I think we shouldn't listen to them in the first place.
But that's the funny thing about the activists is they're like, we need to change, or we need like, it's not like, oh, we need these incremental changes, right? Like there was a time when that was kind of what, like activism would be like, oh, we need to change this thing here, or we need to change this thing here. Now, it's always like, oh, we need to make these like sweeping changes to the way that we live, right?
I never got on board with any activists because in my book, an activist is just someone who's trying to be part of the theological class. And let me explain what I mean by the theological class.
You're going to have to explain that.
To me, an activist is just somebody who's trying to get other people to feed them.
Okay.
And
how is that to be part of... What do you mean by theological class?
Take ancient Egypt. There was a class of priests, right?
Yes.
They were the theological class. What did they do? Fuck all. But they were at the top and everybody fed them.
Oh. So when you're talking about theological class, you're not talking about religion necessarily.
Well, I am, but I'm not talking about the current theological class, which I don't think is that much different from... And the reason why I don't say that is because it's such an incendiary term to you that you just kind of cease thinking at that point.
Can you tell?
And get really mad and turn into like some bull.
I was like, right. You're gonna have to explain that, my friend.
Right. You just turn into like an angry bull, and I'm just like, I really don't want to be like, you know.
Was it that obvious? I like slammed down my glass.
You didn't have to slam down your glass. I could already tell. But, you know, and my problem with the theological class has nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with people. And I'm not one of those people that says, I don't want to go to church because I don't like all the stuff that's done in the name of religion. To me, those are 2 very separate things.
But it's hard to separate it sometimes when you're in church.
Well, it's hard to separate it at any time. You could be in church. You could be a person that's persecuted by the religion.
Yeah.
Which I find very sad, but there's a very twisted, humorous side of that, in that the people that were persecuted by a certain religion, not those exact people, but later on people of the same ilk or category, once that religion becomes disfavored, are more than willing to persecute everybody else, just like the people like them were persecuted.
That's true.
I mean, if you think about it, the Mayans, right? They used to engage in human sacrifice and all that stuff, right? And they're probably in Guatemala and El Salvador, I believe.
I don't know where the Mayans are. I know it's like in the Americas somewhere.
Yeah, so
South America. So
back in the heyday of the Mayans, they were sitting there like capturing and killing all kinds of neighboring tribes, right? Mm-hmm. Well, weren't the Mayans the subject of an attempted mass genocide, if you will, in the 80s?
Yeah. They tried to wipe them out.
Yeah. That's a little messed up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if you're see, that's why I don't like the whole academic stuff. Like, even Thomas Jefferson wrote that the tree of liberty needs to be pruned or needs to be nourished or whatever from time to time with the blood of tyrants and patriots. I'm like, fuck you. You debaucherous, drunken.
I didn't realize you're not such a fan of Jefferson.
I love him, but I hate him at the same time because he's a person.
Yeah. That's a very glib thing to say. Easy thing to say, right?
Yeah, he was essentially an American lord, really.
Yeah.
To take a page out of British
aristocracy.
Guys were. All of those guys. They were all gentlemen farmers or rich folks.
Yeah.
Not a single one of our quote-unquote founding fathers or signers of the Declaration of Independence was a coal miner or a street sweeper.
Yeah.
They were doctors. Everybody from Virginia owned a plantation.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean you throw out the founding document with those guys.
Yeah, those documents made sense.
Right. So it's like, that's the thing. That's where I have a problem with, people who are like, oh, well, these guys were this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But does that mean that, like, what they built, the Constitution and everything else, like, are you saying throw that shit out too? Like, we shouldn't have any of that stuff? That there's nothing good about that stuff?
You know what the short answer is, though?
What?
If it's not something that I want, then yes.
What's the alternative?
I don't care. Free speech is no good if someone's speaking about stuff that I don't want to hear.
Too bad.
What about free speech for you? Well, I should definitely have free speech. What about that person? Oh, no, that's hate speech or whatever. Like, come on, dude. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. You can, but you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can, but you have to live alone. So, Well, that's kind of funny. We only got to one question. Here I thought we just like, boom, boom, boom. We'll answer all these questions.
Did you have other questions?
I thought I did, but then we started talking and I forgot them all. I forgot all the other the questions that we had posed and never gave an answer to, which is essentially everything that we talk about.
Yeah. I guess that's why my friend thinks that we're sitting here smoking weed.
If we smoked weed, I think it'd be way, way worse.
Well, you couldn't, so it's moot.
If we were smoking weed, it would be 30 minutes of me throwing up.
Well, try 2.5 hours of you throwing up.
Well, it's probably more like 10 hours, dude. I throw out so much at a certain point. There have only been a few times in my life where I wish that I were dead.
And that was one of them?
Me after the after effects of me and trying the marijuana.
I can't believe you did it more than once, though.
I only did it twice.
That's what I mean, though. You must be a sucker for punishment. Like, after the first time, you're like, let me try that again.
Well, one time's not enough, right? I mean, it's...
That's like when I was driving over to the market and getting some supplies just before this and coming back, a couple of the radio hosts were talking about some guy that tried to drill his head, like using the old method.
Ow.
Of it's like a corkscrew with a thing on it, like the
hand drill?
The ancient head drill.
Ooh.
He couldn't get it right the first time, so he tried the same method a second time.
Well, I'm not quite that extreme.
And then the third time he just went for some he went for a modern drill on the third attempt.
Well, I'm not that...
And then after that, I didn't hear the end of the story because I already came back after that, but...
I don't know that I would drill my head, but... Well, I had to find out if it was just like a weird thing.
No, you should have known after the first attempt.
Well, that's probably why I don't do drugs.
Drugs are bad, okay? I think we're done.
I think that's enough for this episode.
Unless there's something you want to talk about.
No, thanks for listening. Please keep on. Like, subscribe. Doo-dah, doo-dah.
Huzzah!